They thought they were completely alone. They checked the reviews. They locked the heavy wooden doors. But right beneath their feet, inside the dark, damp crawl space of their perfect weekend rental, a stranger was sitting on a dirty mattress, watching a live stream of their bedroom on a glowing monitor, waiting for the bedroom lights to go out. Welcome back to Shadow Whispers. Every single day, hundreds of thousands of people check into vacation rentals, placing their absolute trust in a digital app, 5-star reviews, and a host they have never met face-to-face. We lock the front door and immediately feel safe. But what if the house itself is designed to betray you? What if the walls have eyes, the smart technology is a weapon, and the previous occupant never actually checked out? Tonight, we deep dive into 3 chilling, completely documented accounts of travelers who realized far too late that their dream vacation was a meticulously planned trap. Grab your headphones, lock your surroundings, and let's look into the shadows. Story 1. The smart home is watching. Our first account comes from Marcus, a 29-year-old software engineer and data analyst from Seattle. In the winter of 2024, Marcus was facing an intense deadline for a major corporate coding project. The constant noise and distractions of the city were making it impossible to focus. Seeking absolute isolation, he opened his rental app and found what appeared to be the holy grail of modern workspaces. A secluded, ultra-luxury cabin tucked deep into the rugged wilderness of Central Oregon. The listing boasted state-of-the-art smart home integration. Everything, from the automated blackout blinds and climate control to the voice-activated lighting and multi-room audio, was controlled by a master system. When Marcus arrived at the remote property, he received a text message from the host, a man named Raymond. The text read, "Welcome, Marcus. Everything in the cabin is automated for your absolute privacy and comfort. I live in the city and will not disturb you. Enjoy the deep silence of the woods." For the first 2 nights, the cabin was a paradise of productivity. Marcus worked late into the night, fueled by coffee and the complete absence of human life for miles around. But on the 3rd night, the silence stopped feeling peaceful. It began to feel heavy. It was exactly 1:15 a.m. Marcus was sitting on the large leather couch, his face illuminated only by the blue glare of his laptop screen, typing out lines of code. Suddenly, without warning, the bright overhead living room lights instantly dimmed down to exactly 10%. Marcus paused, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. He frowned, assuming it was a pre-programmed energy-saving night mode built into the smart ecosystem. He stood up, walked across the cold floor to the wall-mounted master tablet, and tapped the screen to restore the brightness. But the screen didn't respond. Instead, a bold red text block flashed on the interface. System settings, managed remotely by administrator. Marcus felt a slight ripple of annoyance. He pulled out his phone and sent a polite message to Raymond through the app, asking him to reset the lighting profile. No response. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Marcus sighed and turned around to walk back to his laptop. Click. A sharp, mechanical echo shattered the silence of the house. Marcus spun around. The automated heavy blinds covering the massive floor-to-ceiling glass windows were slowly, smoothly rolling upward. The blinds retracted completely, exposing the entire brightly lit interior of the cabin to the vast, pitch-black woods outside. Standing there, Marcus felt an immediate, primal wave of vulnerability. He felt like an animal inside a brightly illuminated glass cage, completely visible to whatever or whoever might be standing out there in the dark. He approached the glass, cupping his hands around his eyes to peer out into the tree line. There was nothing but endless blackness. He tried to pull the blinds down manually, but there were no cords, no handles. The entire system was completely digital.
Target identified. Proximity, 0 meters. Raymond? Raymond, if this is some kind of remote maintenance joke, it isn't funny. Turn the lights back on.
Then, the master tablet on the wall began to beep aggressively. Marcus walked over to it, his hands trembling. The admin lockout screen had disappeared, replaced by a live security camera interface. Marcus's heart dropped into his stomach. The original Airbnb listing had explicitly stated that there were absolutely no internal cameras on the property due to privacy regulations. But on the screen, there were 4 distinct high-definition camera feeds. One was positioned in the corner of the living room, one was in the kitchen, one was directly above the master bed, and the 4th feed was labeled crawlspace under floor. Marcus stared in absolute horror at the 4th feed. The camera was resting on a makeshift wooden beam under the floorboards. In the center of the frame was a filthy sleeping bag, several crumpled fast food wrappers, a pair of muddy work boots, and a small glowing battery-powered monitor. Marcus leaned in closer to the tablet screen to see what was on that tiny monitor under the floor. It was a live, real-time stream of Marcus himself, standing right in front of the tablet. Marcus didn't think. He didn't grab his wallet, his coat, or his expensive laptop. Guided entirely by a pure survival instinct, he sprinted through the darkness, ripped open the front door, and tumbled out into the freezing winter air. He scrambled into his car, his hands shaking so violently he could barely insert the key, and slammed on the gas, fishtailing down the icy, unlit dirt road. He drove 30 miles to the nearest state police barracks. When state troopers raided the luxury cabin at dawn, the crawl space was completely empty. The sleeping bag and the monitor were gone, but investigators found a hidden spring-loaded trapdoor cut directly into the floorboards inside the master bedroom closet. Raymond, the verified host, claimed his account had been hacked months ago and that he had no knowledge of the modifications. The listing vanished from the app by noon. Marcus made it out alive, but the psychological scars never healed. Today, he lives in an old-fashioned apartment with zero smart technology, manual locks, and no internet. Because every time an automated light blinks or a smart device updates, Marcus wonders who is really controlling the room. Story 2: The Walls Have Eyes. Our second account takes us to a historic district famed for its cobblestone streets and ancient architecture. In the summer of 2025, Sarah, a 24-year-old graduate student, and her younger sister Emily booked a charming vintage apartment for a much-needed weekend getaway. The Airbnb listing was filled with glowing 5-star reviews from international travelers, all praising the property's authentic old-world charm, antique furniture, and Gothic aesthetics. It seemed like the perfect picturesque place to stay. When the sisters arrived, they utilized a contactless check-in via a lockbox on the iron gate. Walking into the apartment was like stepping back in time. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and polished wax. The walls were adorned with dramatic 19th-century oil paintings of pale aristocrats with hollow, unblinking eyes. But the most prominent feature of the apartment was the mirrors. Massive floor-to-ceiling antique mirrors occupied almost every wall, reflecting the dim, amber lighting of the chandeliers. Emily jokingly remarked that the place felt like the perfect setting for a classic horror movie. They laughed it off, unpacked their bags, ordered some food, and eventually went to sleep in the grand master bedroom, which featured a beautiful 4-poster bed facing a particularly massive, ornate mirror built directly into the heavy brick wall. Around 2:45 a.m., Sarah woke up abruptly. The air in the room had grown intensely cold, and a strange, heavy sensation of dread settled over her chest. She turned over and saw Emily fast asleep beside her, snoring softly. But Sarah couldn't shake the overwhelming, instinctual feeling that she was being watched, not from the window and not from the doorway, but from somewhere inside the room. She sat up slowly, her eyes scanning the dark corners of the space. Her eyes eventually locked onto the massive mirror directly opposite the bed. In the pale moonlight, she noticed something highly unusual. The reflection of the room inside the glass didn't seem to match the crisp clarity of the actual bedroom. It looked slightly muted, dark, and hazy, almost as if she were looking through a tinted window rather than a reflective surface. Driven by a sudden surge of curiosity and unease, Sarah slid out from under the blankets. Her bare feet made no sound on the cold wooden floor as she crept toward the glass. She stood just inches away from the massive mirror. She leaned forward, cupping her hands tightly around the sides of her face to block out the faint moonlight from the bedroom, and pressed her eyes directly against the cool glass, staring into the darkness beyond. Sarah's lungs froze. Her heart stopped beating. It wasn't a mirror at all. It was a massive sheet of two-way glass, and on the other side of that glass was not a solid wall. It was a narrow, pitch-black, secret corridor built into the framework of the building. As Sarah's eyes frantically adjusted to the deep darkness on the other side, she realized she was staring directly into a human face. A tall, emaciated man was standing just 2 inches away from her on the other side of the glass. He was completely naked from the waist up, his skin a sickly pale white. He was standing perfectly still, his wide, bloodshot eyes locked directly onto Sarah's. He had been standing in that hidden tunnel, watching the sisters sleep for hours. Sarah was so utterly paralyzed by pure, unadulterated terror that she couldn't even scream. Her throat felt completely constricted. The man slowly, deliberately raised his thin, skeletal hand, pressing his bare palm against the two-way glass, directly matching the position where Sarah's face was pressed. And then, his lips curled into a wide, jagged, horrifying smile.
The man suddenly tapped his fingernails against the glass. Tap, tap, tap. The sound broke Sarah's paralysis. She let out a blood-curdling scream that echoed through the entire apartment, stumbling backward and crashing violently onto the floor. "Emily, wake up! We have to go right now! Someone is inside the walls!"
As they flew down the dark, narrow stairwell of the historic building, Sarah glanced back up. The door to a small, unmarked maintenance closet located right next to their apartment unit was standing wide open. A dark silhouette rushed down the back fire escape into the labyrinth of city alleys. When the police arrived and searched the property, they discovered a horrifying architectural nightmare. The entire apartment unit had been completely modified from the inside. A network of soundproofed, narrow corridors ran behind the walls of the bedroom, bathroom, and living room, all completely lined with two-way mirrors. Inside the secret tunnels, police found multiple cameras, audio recording equipment, and a small chair positioned directly behind the master bedroom mirror. The host, a local property speculator, was arrested 3 weeks later while trying to board a flight to a non-extradition country. He had hours of footage of unsuspecting tourists saved on an encrypted server. The psychological impact on Sarah was permanent. To this day, whenever she enters a hotel room, a public restroom, or a rental property, she immediately performs the fingernail test on every mirror. Because she knows that if there is no gap between her finger and its reflection, she isn't alone. Someone is standing right there, sharing her space. Story 3. The Unwelcome Guest. Our final account is perhaps the most deeply disturbing because it highlights the extreme vulnerability of being completely isolated in a world where you think you are safe. This happened to Chloe, a 26-year-old independent travel documentarian and vlogger who traveled solo around the world, reviewing unique and architectural properties for her growing online audience. In the autumn of 2025, she booked a highly exclusive remote glass bungalow situated on a private peninsula in upstate New York. The bungalow was an architectural masterpiece during the day, surrounded by pristine water and private woodlands. However, as night fell, the design revealed a glaring vulnerability. The entire main floor was made of massive glass panels with absolutely no curtains or blinds. The host had explicitly assured Chloe that the entire peninsula was strictly private property, protected by automated security gates, with absolutely zero public or foot access for miles around. "You have total privacy," the listing claimed. "Only the lake can see you." On her first night, Chloe set up her professional vlogging camera on a heavy tripod on the kitchen island to film a cooking segment for her channel. After she finished filming around 11:30 p.m., she left the camera resting on the tripod, turned off the kitchen lights, and walked up the floating stairs to the second-floor loft bedroom, which was the only part of the house enclosed by solid walls. She fell asleep quickly, comforted by the gentle, rhythmic sound of the lake water hitting the wooden dock outside. At exactly 4:02 a.m., Chloe woke up. A strange, out-of-place sound had pierced through her sleep. It was a faint, wet, rhythmic slap, followed by a heavy sliding sound on the hardwood floor downstairs. Slap, drag, slap, drag. Chloe sat up in bed, her heart hammering against her ribs. She held her breath, listening intently. She told herself it was just the structural beams of the house settling, or perhaps a large fish jumping near the dock, creating an echo through the glass walls. The sound didn't repeat. Exhausted from her travels, she eventually forced herself to close her eyes and fell back into a restless sleep. The next morning, Chloe walked downstairs to brew some coffee and begin packing her gear. As she approached the kitchen island, she immediately noticed something wrong. Her vlogging camera was tilted downward at an awkward angle, pointing toward the floor. She distinctly remembered leaving it perfectly level and locked into the tripod head the night before. Curiously, and with a growing sense of nervousness, Chloe turned on the camera's playback screen to see if she had accidentally bumped it, or if the internal motion detection sensor had triggered a recording during the night. She pressed play. The footage was recorded at exactly 3:32 a.m. Chloe watched the tiny screen, and every ounce of warmth instantly drained from her body. In the video, the large glass sliding door of the living room, a door she had personally locked before going upstairs, slowly and silently slides open. A tall, broad-shouldered man steps out of the freezing, pitch-black darkness of the lake and into the house. He was wearing clothes that were completely, utterly soaked, dripping pools of lake water onto the clean hardwood floor. His long hair was matted to his pale face. He didn't look like a burglar. He didn't look around for a television, a laptop, or money. He simply walked with a slow, deliberate limp around the kitchen island. Then, he stopped directly in front of Chloe's tripod. He leaned in, staring directly into the camera lens with wide, vacant, unblinking eyes. He stood there, completely motionless, dripping water, staring into the lens for 3 long, agonizing minutes. But the footage didn't stop there. In the video, the wet stranger slowly turns his head toward the floating stairs leading directly up to Chloe's bedroom loft. He begins to walk up the steps, his wet shoes leaving a dark trail on the wood. The camera continues to record empty space for 23 minutes. 23 minutes where that soaking wet, completely silent stranger was standing directly over Chloe's open bed, watching her breathe in total darkness while she was completely defenseless.
See you tonight.
Chloe didn't even turn off the camera. She dropped it onto the floor, grabbed her car keys, and sprinted out of the house in a state of absolute hysteria. She drove at breakneck speeds until she reached a crowded highway gas station miles away, where she locked herself in the vehicle and called the state police. When a heavily armed police unit searched the lake property, the man was long gone. But hidden in the dense tree line just 50 yards from the glass house, officers discovered an old, half-sunken wooden rowboat. Inside the rowboat was a waterproof backpack containing a pair of binoculars, a notebook detailing Chloe's daily schedule, and dozens of Polaroid photographs of different women who had stayed at that exact glass bungalow over the past 6 months, all taken from the outside woods while they were inside the illuminated glass house at night. The wet stranger was never identified or captured. The property was permanently stripped from the platform, but the lake remains cold and silent. The next time you find yourself booking a beautiful, modern, isolated rental with gorgeous glass walls, remember Chloe. Lock every door, pull every curtain, and remember, just because you can't see into the dark woods, doesn't mean the dark woods aren't looking directly at you. These accounts serve as a terrifying reminder that the spaces we rent for comfort can easily become our biggest nightmares. The next time you check into a vacation rental, take a second look at the mirrors, check the floorboards, verify the cameras. If these true accounts send a chill down your spine, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to Shadow Whispers, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a descent into the dark. Let me know in the comments below, which of these 3 stories terrified you the most, and would you ever stay in a remote rental alone? Until next time, keep watching the shadows, because they might just be watching you.